I want to first say hello and welcome to everyone. I'm so happy to see so many people have joined us today for our strategic planning session, Leading the Future of Recovery. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to go through a couple of housekeeping items. The first one, you may have noticed that your microphones are muted, and this is in order to enable our speakers to present without interruption. The chat will be open later on so that you can ask any questions that you have. And as long as time allows, we'll have a question and answer session where someone will read the questions that are in chat at the end of the session today. But if we don't have any time at the end to answer the questions that you have, feel free to send them in by email to information@smartrecovery.org. And we have all your email addresses also from registration. So anything that you sent in on your registration form that may not be covered during the session, we will get back to you individually with those answers to the questions you've asked. Additionally, the meeting and the presentation slides are being recorded along with the video, and those will be sent out to you as well after today's session. Okay, I would like to introduce you to today's presenters. Thank you, first of all, for everyone who is volunteering to present today. We have some great information, and we're going to learn so much about our strategic plan that was put together by the suggestions and the needs of our volunteers and participants. So thank you for everything that all of you have contributed to our strategic plan. Today, we will hear from Bill Greer, who is our board president. Bill first came to SMART as a participant before volunteering as a meeting facilitator. Bill later became a regional coordinator before joining our board of directors and eventually becoming president for Smart Recovery USA. Our board vice president, Brett Sarella, first started out as a participant in New York and then a facilitator around 9/11. She quickly became active on the New York City board and early training program. From there, she became involved in the National Conference and Training Committee. Brett has a professional background as an LCSW in geriatric addiction and mental health. Our executive director, Mark Ruth, is also presenting today. And in his youth, Mark grew up in an orphanage and remembers the many volunteers who helped shape his life. He appreciates the working with our committed and passionate SMART volunteers and community. After working as the mental health ombudsman for the National Alliance on Mental Illness in Lake County, Ohio, I came to SMART as an employee and also someone who has lived experience as a family member having loved ones in my life who have either overcome or are still living with substance use disorders. And we have Anna Troncaso, who is on our board of directors. She came to SMART as a participant and has been facilitating meetings in Phoenix since 2010. She's currently facilitating 2 meetings each week. Last year, she joined our board of directors and is now the chair of our Diversity and Inclusion Committee. We also have 2 additional members of our team. They are part of our volunteer support team. We have Melina Gilbert, who is our volunteer support manager, and Molly Princik, our SROL support manager. Both of them are here today, and they're available in chat during and after the session. So they'll be able to answer any questions related to volunteer support or anything regarding meetings, things like that. But again, if your questions aren't answered during today's session, you can also send an email to information@smartrecovery.org, and they will be happy to respond to you. Today, this is the agenda we'll be going over and sharing with you today. We'll be encouraging you again to type any questions in that you may have. And again, we have your contact information to respond to you if you have anything that we haven't covered. So from here, I will turn it over to Bill to talk about building the future of Smart Recovery.
Thank you, Christy, and I would like to thank everyone here today for your interest and especially if you're volunteering for SMART, your support for our organization and the very important mission that we serve in helping people recover along with their family and friends. I'd like to begin by setting the stage for this strategic plan. I mean, why did we decide to develop a plan at this particular point in time? And there's really a couple of very powerful reasons for that, that some of you may not be totally aware of. Not that long ago, back in 2010, SMART was a relatively small organization. We had like 600 weekly meetings worldwide. We had only 300 meetings in the US. Within the next 9 to 10 years, those numbers, you could say, just grew incredibly to 3,500 worldwide, and in the US, more than 2,000. So in the US alone, the number of meetings grew by a factor of 7, simply in a short period of 10 years. And now, one of the reasons for that growth, of course, was the great demand for our meetings, driven a great deal by the addiction epidemic that was growing very significantly during that same time, as well as one of the most evident aspects of that problem, which was the drug overdose deaths. It became very apparent to us as we were growing that we didn't have enough staff to support that growth. And also many of our volunteers were, we didn't have enough volunteers to support all the new meetings we were developing. Volunteers were burning out, or they just couldn't handle 2 and 3 meetings at the same time. So we needed a lot more staff, we needed a lot more volunteers, and it was really time for us to stop and take a look at what we needed to do to prepare SMART, maybe for the next 25 years of growth. We had just completed our first 25, and see the changes that we need to make to accommodate a much larger organization. And then as we were beginning our strategic planning process, as some of you may recall, this pandemic came along and just forced us to move hundreds of meetings, literally hundreds, online from face to face. A very challenging process, but something that we did with great skill, because we had a lot of experience with online meetings. So we pulled this off in about 3 months, moving about 600 local meetings online, and we grew our meetings on our national website to about 50, now 55. So we're very much an online organization, as well as, well, when we get past the pandemic, back to being face-to-face. I should say, in our strategic planning, we were thinking that we were going to be adding some online meetings as part of our growth. We didn't know it was going to be that many. So in that respect, I think the pandemic has helped us learn how to do a lot more online meetings, and I think we will continue to do that as we get past the pandemic and make that transition. I think we've also benefited from professionals seeing the value of SMART and recommending SMART to a lot more people. I think many of the people attending our meetings now are being referred to meetings by treatment centers, counselors, other professionals, and I think that's an encouraging sight and development. I think one of the reasons for that is I think SMART represents, I think, part of a new recovery paradigm that's been emerging really, I think, for quite some time, but I think it's widely recognized now that there's a need for, science-based, evidence-based recovery. We have a stigma-free model, and we're focusing on really transformative and holistic care. If you look at our 4 points, which is not just about stopping your addictive behavior, but it's building an entirely new lifestyle and life to replace the one that was disrupted by addiction, which I think is something that SMART focuses on very effectively and explains, I think, and to a great extent, why we've been so successful. Now, you're going to hear a lot about different aspects of this strategic plan, so I'm not going to be repeating what other people are saying, but I would like to focus on one aspect, and that is the financial part. As any organization grows, you need a lot more resources. That includes staff, that includes technology, that includes programming to train more people, to improve training, to support our meetings especially, and to support our volunteers so that they can be successful in delivering our mission to the people who need our help. And we need to make a lot of changes, and we need to grow in a lot of ways, which is going to require a lot more money. So we're trying to emphasize financial growth in a lot of different ways, and trying to build revenue streams in many areas. And that includes a lot more grants, which we're having a lot more success with, contributions from foundations, planned giving from individuals, and any other resources that we can find to support SMART, because you really can't have, even though we're a nonprofit organization, and I spent my entire life in the nonprofit sector, you cannot become a large organization and get to the point where we might be looking at 3,000 to 5,000 meetings in the next 5 years, without the financial resources to support that and continuing to support that. So I actually, at this point in time, given our growth and given our aspirations to grow a lot more, I think this is really a time for SMART to shine. I think we're getting a lot more attention already, and I think we will continue to have that. The addiction epidemic has gotten a lot worse. I should emphasize, I don't know if you look at the statistics, I mean, the drug overdose numbers have been growing to staggering numbers. They've gone from 70,000 overdose deaths in 2019, and in 1 year, we're on track to get to 100,000 overdose deaths when we finally come to add up all the deaths in 2020, just driven by the pandemic itself. So it's an opportunity for SMART to really show how we can make a difference in the opioid epidemic and in helping people with their addiction problems altogether as we go about leading the future of recovery with our science-based, transformative, and holistic program. And one thing I'd like to emphasize just before handing this off, this is not a board plan, this is not a staff plan. This plan was created by a group of volunteers that were representing all those people. And I should also emphasize that this is just the beginning. This is a plan. Now the most important part of what we're doing, it comes now, and that is executing the plan. It's great to have a plan, but until you start implementing it, it's really meaningless. So we're going to be focusing a great deal on a lot of different measures we're taking to implement the plan in a very detailed way. You'll be hearing a lot more from us on these details, and we're going to be, I'm inviting you and I'm hoping you will be engaged in helping us implement the plan in any way that you want. We're going to have a lot of different committees and other ways that you can participate. So we welcome your help in any way that you can. So thank you again for all that you do for SMART.
Hi, everyone. I am, following in Bill's capable footsteps, and I'm here to talk a little bit about a section of the plan, which is called the organizational culture, structure, and leadership. And we also threw in technology just because there wasn't enough there. And one way to best sort of think about this, because I've done a lot of thinking about this over the last few months, is if we think about our SMART community as a living organism, and how can we make that organism as healthy as possible? So how do we identify what are our organizational culture and our shared values? And how do we go about expressing and demonstrating those? So I've been around SMART a long time, as Christy mentioned, and what I've seen that we do incredibly well, starting at the very basic place of our meetings with our volunteers, or when people come into our chat rooms, is they're introduced to our 4 points, and they're introduced to what is Smart Recovery? What is this program? What is this place? Who are these people? And so we do this really well for our participants. They know what it feels like to be in a SMART meeting and how that's different from being somewhere else. They know it's a place where they're going to be accepted, where we don't use labels, we don't use judgments. We're going to meet them where they're at, wherever they are in the change process. We're going to help them grow and develop. And we apply the 4 points very, very skillfully all over the place when we look outwardly. What has been more challenging for us, and I think it's because, as Bill mentioned, we have grown so rapidly, almost from a little infant into an adult organization, is we haven't always managed to apply these values as well to ourselves internally. So we haven't always managed to apply them really well to how do we treat our volunteers? How do we acknowledge them? How do we planfully decide how to grow our staff? How do we planfully think about balancing out the people in our leadership so that they match and look like the people we're serving? Hence, diversity. So where do we need to make these fine tunes? Where do we need to make some adjustments? This is the thing we're going to be focusing on now, as we finally kind of have gotten to a critical mass. And we also have a bit of a breather in that we have enough money flowing in from new sources, grants. Thank goodness we're not just relying on passing the hat and scraping by each year with worrying that we have to shutter our doors and maybe not provide services, but we're in a pretty good place. We can take a breath and say, let's planfully think about how do we want our organization to look? Can our insides match our outsides? And as a person who's been a caregiver for a long time, both professionally and personally, and a lot of you are caregivers too, just by volunteering for the organization, you know about burnout, you know about stress, you know about trying to juggle too many meetings. You don't want the meeting to shut down, but you don't have a replacement for it. And these are the sort of issues we're also wrestling with. We've found, meetings work a lot better when you have multiple facilitators to run them. Works a lot better if you can support the facilitators after training and have a place where they feel like they're really tied in to a community. So we're going to have a lot of initiatives like this. You're going to see in the next year or two, a lot of committees, new ideas coming about how to make our insides kind of reflect our outsides, so that we're going to put our money where our mouth is, basically. And then the next thing, which of course in this day and age underpins all of this, is our technology. There's always grumbles that our website is kind of rusty, it doesn't work so well, how do I find the meeting better, that kind of thing. So we really want our technology to catch up with us and meet our needs better. How can it meet our rapid growth, both internally and externally? Everything from the folks at the office don't have a great database to when brand new people just land on us and get a first impression of what SMART is that the impression we want them to have? We want them to stick around and stay with us. So how do we update the existing technology while also knowing that a lot of people we serve may not have all the latest tech resources and gadgets? So we want to continue online meetings. We want to introduce new apps. We want to streamline things, but we also don't want to lose the population that may not even have a computer or a cell phone to get to. So how do you balance those two needs, right? So we're going to have a new committee forming about a new tech committee to try to wrestle with these issues too. And if you're a tech guru, please let us know, because we definitely need some of those folks. And also looking for some new opportunities where technology is key, doing things we haven't done before. Like this year, our national conference is going to be a virtual hybrid, due to coronavirus. And you all, I'm sure, have seen our meetings expanding online, and are we going to continue doing that? Because it is a way to help more people more in a cheaper, easier way. But it also, we don't want to leave people out.
So I am here to talk about just diversity in general. I am the chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and that committee is an outgrowth of the mandate in the strategic plan to increase the diversity within Smart Recovery. The plan has a number of steps that we will be taking that are a little bit more about gathering information. We are looking forward to developing some surveys that will go out to the volunteers to gather both demographic information and also information about what your experiences are with the organization regarding diversity and inclusion. Where are the pain points? Are there things that we need to be aware of so that we can start to course correct? In order to do some of that work, we'll also be looking at other organizations and looking at how they are making things work and see if we can identify some best practices that we can bring to SMART, to much like the technology, much like what Brett was talking about, making sure that we are treating ourselves the way that we want to be treating people outside of the organization, kind of bring those things in alignment. The committee itself includes members from across the organization. We have people like myself who are still volunteering and facilitating meetings, also board members. We have other board members. We have facilitators from across the country. We have representation from the marketing team. We have representation from the regional coordinators. And we even have a professional from outside of the organization who is a strong supporter of Smart Recovery and feels very, very vested in our kind of journey with diversity and inclusion, making sure that we get this right, as it were. And we're super, super lucky to have her. So we have a number of people who are working very hard to get this off the ground. Over the last year or so, we've made a number of strides. There are a couple of things that are really important to me that I want to share with you guys. Number one is just in terms of the makeup of the leadership of the organization. We've expanded the board of directors so that there are more people on it. And we've also implemented term limits. And so those two things combined, I think, allow for more opportunity to people to come on and come off and give folks from kind of who have different perspectives in life an opportunity to really make an impact on the board, on the organization. So those two things were, I think, key, and they were done pretty early on in the process. I want you guys to know that. Another project that has taken off that is particularly important to me, I'm a Spanish language speaker. I happen to be bilingual, but I know that a lot of people are not. We have moved forward with additional Spanish language resources. So there is now a Spanish language landing page. There are videos available, there are tools that have been translated, and I believe that an update to the current translation of the workbook is in progress. So those are things that are ongoing. And then more recently, the Diversity Committee has been asked to consult on issues kind of that touch across, sorry. I skipped the slides. Thank you so much for moving those forward. More recently, the Diversity Committee has been asked to consult on issues that touch a number of different sections of the organization. So, for example, a recent blog post, we realized that it could use an extra eye to make sure that we were really prioritizing the needs of a number of different communities. So we were called in for that. We have been asked to nominate a speaker for the national conference, and I believe that that choice has been carried out. So we'll have somebody representing diversity and inclusion issues within the recovery community at the national conference in October. There are a number of things that we're going to be doing moving forward. I'm not entirely sure how much time we have, but I do want to touch on something that is near and dear to my heart. I understand that this group that is here is made up primarily of volunteers. So first of all, I want to thank you guys for all of the work that you do. I thank you all for the work that you do. And I want to give you some ideas about what you can do specifically to support diversity and inclusion efforts, and how to think about the folks in your room. So if you are facilitators, one of the things that Brett touched on is the need for support, right? You want to be developing new and upcoming facilitators, hosts through your groups. One of the things that can happen is that we see our people through a lens. So if I look out at a group of people and I have an idea of what a good host would be or what a good facilitator would be, maybe somebody who looks like me, maybe somebody who looks like one of my mentors, then as I'm looking out at that sea of people, I'm focusing on people who look like that vision, who talk like that, who have come from that economic background. And I may miss other folks in the group who may not meet my initial perception of what a good host or a good facilitator would be. So as just one small thing that we can do, I encourage you to look around your group and think about who maybe could be a really good facilitator, who maybe could be a really good host, a really good meeting helper, somebody that you might have overlooked in the past. And just with that one small thing, you can actually move us forward. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about is moving forward, what is our committee planning to do? Specifically, we talked about the surveys. One of the things that we want to do is extend training throughout the board level and the staff level, and ultimately throughout the facilitator and volunteer level, on a number of issues around diversity, so that people have the language that they need, the training that they need, the support that they need when they encounter situations within their own groups. We also want to move forward with a list of resources that people can use in lieu of formal training, reading, podcasts, TED Talks, things like that, that would help you kind of get a handle on where you want to be. And then we very much want your feedback. So even if we're not sending out formal surveys, if you have something that you want to share with us, if you have something that's important to you, please go ahead and raise that. Melina Gilbert has volunteered to be one of the points of contact. Also, I suspect if you raised your issues through your regional coordinator, they would get to us as well. So there are a number of ways to communicate with us, and we definitely want your input. So that's where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And I just wanted to say thank you to Brett, as well as Bill, Christy, for the extra effort to go into this conference, but especially to all of the volunteers that make up our organization, our community, and then also to our national office, our staff, that I couldn't do what I do as a good quality leader if I didn't have the team that I have. And then lastly, our board of directors. So we have a really good community of smart minded individuals. So thank you all. I wanted to also recognize, I saw Darren here. Darren's here from Smart Recovery International from Ireland. And he might have been the only one that I saw from our SRI group. We work very closely with the SRI group of countries and the leadership of that group. So we also want to thank them. Our plan is, the current version is an effort that quite literally started back in 2020, in early 2020, and was led by so many different people and individuals that I can't thank enough. But we also had a plan to start with, and that was the one that was our freedom from addiction, and that really set the ball in motion for me when I joined in late 2018. It was really using that as the model. Here we have the wonderful dynamics of a new plan, and we are going to be working and are excited about adapting it and developing it along with all of you in support of execution. So my job here now is just give you a little bit of a briefing of putting the plan into action. And I can't tell you how excited I know I am, our board and our staff in support of that. So, but before we look into the plan, we wanted to make sure we outline some of the key metrics that were important to the organization. And certainly we can't miss by starting with mission impact. And our participants and our meetings are really important for us to be able to track as best we can, because we do still provide a level of anonymity, and yet we still want to do our very best to track the numbers of people, the millions of people that we serve across the United States and internationally. So that's important. And our volunteer tracking is something that we are really much mindful of, not only in terms of the number of that take our training, but the numbers that actually take that training and extend that to starting meetings or serving in different volunteer roles. So we are really working hard on the volunteer tracking, as we'll talk about in a little bit as well. And then certainly we are very mindful of our treatment organizations and professionals. We're a peer-driven organization on so many levels, but we are also very much connected to the group of professionals that are doing this for their business and their livelihood. And we have a nice partnership with them as well. So that's all part of our mission metrics. We have a board of directors, and we measure our board of directors by their support, their attendance. We measure them based upon diversity, as Anna mentioned, that we're trying to expand, and that's important to us. And then we have a functional fit that we try to measure, which is an importance of being able to get experienced leadership individuals that have been around different industries and different functional areas. So our community volunteers, our professionals and stakeholders are all part of our leadership and organizational support. Our revenue sources, current and future, are very important. And I'll try to give you a sense of how we've done just even briefly in a few slides from now. And then we have our community brand. And that brand is so important for us to grow, not only in terms of our reach of participants that are in need of our recovery programs, but also in terms of our volunteers and how we develop new volunteers coming from that. So the work of our marketing and communication team and all of the things that we're doing is meant to try to increase that. Just as Anna mentioned, and Bill, we have expanded our board of directors from when I started from 11 to 16. We've expanded the national office from 6 to 14. And I think that's a pretty significant measurement for us to start with, because as Bill mentioned, we can't do what we need to do if we don't have the proper staff to do it. And that also includes an additional 7 that we've outlined for IT support, which we'll get into also in a little bit as well. But quite literally, our full expansion of our leadership and organizational support is something that we've already started to move on, and based upon our finances, we'll continue to be able to develop out. So very important. We're also measuring our results with our treatment professionals. We've already started working very closely with NADAC. We are all of our training programs are underwritten and supported by proper credentials for that, and with CEU credits. That has also affected our access to their professionals. The NAATP, we're a member of that organization and try to do our best. We joined them with their virtual conference this year. We're starting to develop campaigns specific to outreach in the various professional magazines and trying to increase our exposure to that particular area of professionals. Very important to our organization. Again, I've already mentioned the revenue and the community reach, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then I am very proud that we've added both Molly and Melina in our sequence and our commitment as a staff to our volunteers. It is not trivial that we've been able to dedicate individuals that are geared towards listening, working with you, developing training to support you, finding ways to make your role as a volunteer more fulfilling, all of these things are important to make that connection. And I think we have two really good people to help us with that if you have not met them. And then also in terms of our technology, as Brett mentioned, our continued focus on that in so many different ways of the organization, improving the way we operate and the way we support our volunteers and how we interface with our community in general. So what have we done? I've already mentioned the staffing support, but I do want to mention that in the IT arena alone, we went from a couple of people to now having 7 working with Transom, our IT organization. And we have both Karen and Melina from our office taking on more of a direct exposure with IT. So a lot of this is leading towards our ability to develop more streamlined workflow, to help develop more exposure with our volunteers, to support them through our volunteer HQ portal. And then we're just super excited about our continuing focus on Volunteer Month. And this particular month is meant to recognize Volunteer Month across the United States. However, we like to believe that we do that almost every day of our year. We're reminded by our wonderful volunteers every day. And then certainly the commitment to our volunteers and retention. If we can't keep a volunteer engaged, feeling good about what they do for us, feeling comfortable with regards to all of that, then we miss the mark. And we really want to try to focus on that. Just really briefly, and this is going to be in the PowerPoint presentation if you want to see more of this, but we'll also be talking about our metrics in somewhere in the mid-year to give you guys more directed feedback. But these are just very high level graphics to show the increase in some of our revenue streams. And we're very proud of that because we can't do what we want to do if we don't increase our financial revenue stream today, as well as into our future. So whether it's from our training, our bookshops, and our program revenue in general, from our grants, which as you can see, really had no basis in 2018, and we've continued to develop and commit to our growth in that particular area, and that's really important. Why? Because we get to underwrite projects that we can't and don't need to use our donations. We can underwrite those projects from the grants, and that's been very, very beneficial for us. And then overall donations has improved as we've increased our smart community reach and then total income. So very proud that we've been able to increase that basis. Next. Our meeting growth. We wish we could do more, but COVID kind of took us off track to some of the things that we started in 2019, but couldn't be more proud of the transition to our online programs and our transition to bring Zoom meetings to bear for our community. This is meant just to give you a brief final view of not only how the organization has grown in terms of volume, but maybe over the last several years of how flatline our IT commitment has been. So you'll see that number in 2017, and then now up to 2021, where we have 7. We've really made a commitment to that and an investment in technology in general. So we're proud of that step because we need this. And you'll see under the projects that are listed, really just how much we've been trying to do and focus on in these various areas of importance. So we want to continue to develop that staff support, but in balance. We can't add staff just because we want to. We have to add staff when we have available funding to do so. Certainly Bill and our board is committed to extending our board leadership. As Anna mentioned, our diversity inclusion emphasis. And then we are continuing to develop not just a plan for the next year to 2 years, but a plan to help us when we actually get federal funding and more great grants and donations and planned giving. So all of that. So I've already kind of spoke to these, and I know we're on a time constraint. So I just want to kind of close this out with just a mention, if you want to go next on this, because I think I've hit on most of these. This is really what I'd like to make sure that you're aware of. We are running our scholarship program this month, and very, very much would love anybody that could donate to this cause. In the long run, it is our quest to develop endowment programs that allow us to have funding to be able to offer all of our volunteers free training. We're not there yet, but we're continuing to work towards that. So all of your support would be of help to us as we continue that. Please use the QR code on your phone or go to the direct link that's in the slide here. So I'm going to turn this over to Molly and Melina and kind of relate this back to our organization and our volunteers for either questions and answers or other things that you guys want.
So we want to know if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Melina and I, the organizational development, diversity, financial type of stuff. Just let us know if you have questions. I think, Karen, were you going to open chat?
Before we do that, Molly, I'd like to ask Allie to go to the next slide because we've already brought in some of the questions that people included in their forms. So I wonder, first of all, if one of you could speak to online meeting tools. I think, Melina, perhaps this is going to come a lot with Volunteer HQ. We have people wondering what tools are available that they can use in online meetings rather than paper and pen.
All right. So yeah, in Volunteer HQ, we've developed a facilitator's toolbox in there that will provide guidance on how to use the tools, as well as the link to our toolbox on our main site. The toolbox on our main site, you'll notice if you go to that, we have redesigned and redeveloped PDFs that are fillable that can be used in online meetings. Molly, are there other tools that would be helpful?
I would say the toolbox. Yeah, some people use tools that haven't been added to there. So if you have things that you want in there, you can go through the MRC, the Material Review Committee. But with SROL, you're learning this stuff through your facilitator and training program.
There also has been some confusion as we've grown pretty quickly these past few months in an online presence. Can you explain a little bit the difference between local meetings, local online meetings, SROL, and how a person goes from training to starting any of those meetings?
So yeah, we have local meetings, local online, and SROL. So local meetings are our face-to-face meetings. Those are meetings that you can find on our meeting finder on our website. Type in a city and state or a zip code, pull those up. Local online meetings are also found on the website, looking up the same way. They just say moved online in the title. Those are the local meetings that, due to COVID, switched over to an online format or a online in-person. Some of our meetings are doing both. Our SROL meetings, I'm going to let Molly talk about, and then I will talk about getting started once you finish training.
So the process is a little different for SROL meetings. You need to do the training the same way as the local online meetings or face-to-face meetings. There is an application process. So once the application process has been gone through, then you'll start working with your co-liaisons. They'll assign you with a facilitator who will help you through your training. And then once you've made it through your facilitator and training course, which is co-facilitating the meeting, being the meeting helper, getting some feedback from your facilitator, then you'll work with the co-liaisons to schedule your meeting time and what type of meeting you'd be doing.
Okay. And so starting meetings after you complete training, in the training, there's the sections about, looking for locations, how to register your meeting, that kind of stuff. At the end of training, or anytime during actually now, we do have a training role play that is done with our training team that you can kind of practice your skills. You can ask questions there. We have our SMM meetings, which are our smart meeting management meetings. Those are great places also to go and get ideas for any issue, whether it's starting a meeting or an issue during your meeting, anything like that. You could get feedback and I hate to say the word advice because we don't use it, but from other more seasoned facilitators who've been doing it a lot longer. Any meeting that's started through after training will need to be registered with the national office. That's done through Volunteer HQ. You have to register for Volunteer HQ, and then you can access the forms to register those. Any issues, I'm free. If anyone has any questions about this specifically, feel free to email me. Once chat's opened up, I will pop my email in there. And I can help with specific things as far as where to start meetings, things like that. I am happy to say that we are, even after COVID, that we are going to be able to continue to offer Zoom meetings for local online meetings. That's been something that I've heard a lot of questions about because travel, weather, things like that, the local online meetings seem to be good for some areas. So free for specific questions, just reach out to me.
I'd like to add one thing there if I could. I think we're starting to rethink how we want to start meetings or how we want to help people start meetings. And I guess one thing we want to get away from is expecting somebody to come out of the training and immediately by themselves start a new meeting. That's not a recipe for success. And we're trying to figure out ways to provide opportunities for people who, when they complete the training, to start off as a co-facilitator or in some role that allows them to get the experience of becoming a facilitator before they have to do it on their own, or even better, we would like to see all our meetings have at least 2 facilitators, or at least a facilitator and somebody to back them up. Because it's unrealistic really to expect one person to cover a meeting 52 weeks a year. So I think this is something in our strategic planning we're trying to figure out how to address more effectively.
Thanks very much, Bill. Melina, I'm going to ask you one more question. And while you're answering, I'm going to open up the chat room. The question is, if you could describe the difference in the meeting roles. We toss around words like facilitator and helper and host and advanced host and moderator. Can you explain some of those?
So I can explain the ones about the face-to-face meetings. I'm going to let Molly do the SROL meetings. So we have facilitators. Those are our people who complete our full facilitator training, or family and friends, or just facilitator, either one. We have hosts. Those are, they complete the advanced host meeting. We no longer offer the free basic host training. We do an advanced host training. And those 2 different roles are more about the way the meeting's structured. So a facilitated meeting, they set the agenda, they do the crosstalk, the opening and the closing and all the fun stuff in between. A discussion meeting, which is run by a host, that follows more of a script than a full agenda. Molly, do you want to speak to the SROL roles?
Yeah, definitely. So in SROL, we don't do hosts there. You have to do the facilitator training with the FIT program. So we'll have co-facilitators, which is the same idea as you're running together. Then there's meeting helpers. So meeting helpers also do facilitator training, but their job is to monitor chat, to let people in from the waiting room, to share screen, and then put links just to help the facilitator with the flow of the meeting, because they have so many people in there. And so moderators actually are not part of the meeting platform. Moderators will be message board or chat. So they are able to move things around, make sure people are posting in the right places, that type of thing.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Christy to answer this one. It came in the chat just now. Christy, this one says, are local in-person meetings completely separate from the website For example, my facilitator rarely mentions the website or workbooks and tools, etc. And it feels like a splinter group. Curious if it's meant to be separate or unified. So how do in-person local meetings and everything else fit all together for SMART?
The local in-person meetings are the same. They're just online. Well, okay, let's see. Hold on. Let me read it real quick. Local meetings, we have our in-person meetings. Okay, and then we have our local online meetings.
Do they use the same sort of tools in local meetings that they use in SRL meetings?
They do, and it depends on the facilitator. It's run differently in SROL, obviously, because it could be a larger meeting in SROL than a local online meeting. Typically, a local online meeting would be maybe people that you know, and it would be a lot smaller, and it would be from the same area is ideally what you would want. And then an in-person meeting would obviously be from your same geographical area, but the tools and the workbooks, those would all be the same thing. Some facilitators use more than others.
Thank you. Anna, can you add in on this?
Yeah, so as I'm reading the question, it looks like this is a local facilitator who's running a group and maybe doesn't refer back to the workbook specifically. And I think it's relatively easy to accidentally stray away from presenting tools and to have a meeting that becomes more of a discussion group, more of a conversation. And like I think Alex responded to this person in the chat, this is something that I personally would raise with my facilitator directly and say, hey, you know, I'm noticing that we don't really talk about the tools very much. Is there a way that we can bring that back into the group and see what the response is from the facilitator, because facilitators are supposed to be presenting at least one tool per meeting. I think that's the standard. And I don't think that it matters too much if you are face-to-face or one of the national online. The content that we as facilitators are supposed to be exploring, providing to participants, that doesn't change. It's just that there are some parts of the delivery that may adjust. So yeah, I would echo what Alex said in the chat and just really recommend that this person check in with their facilitator directly about some of the questions.
And also I would double check the type of meeting it is and make sure it's not tagged as a discussion type meeting where they wouldn't be not using as many tools.
To clarify, the local meetings and the SRL meetings, are they just on different platforms? I mean, the content, the way they're run can be very much the same. I guess I did mean to imply that they're different in the way that they're handled or run. They're just on different platforms.
I do want to mention, because I don't think we've spoken about this in our presentation, but we're very pleased that our chat availability is online now. We have been able to transition from our Discord over to Rocket Chat. Molly and a good team have been instrumental in making that happen and are available. If anybody needs any questions, please reach out to us and we'd be very happy to support you, but happy to say that that's back online.
I would like to take just a second. It looks like, I think it was Darlene posted in chat about any plans to have a group monitors to ensure registering meetings are being presented in alignment with 4 points. I don't know that we've discussed having group monitors. We are planning to roll out a mentoring program that will provide more mentoring and follow-up. And then we have our regional coordinators who also kind of mentor the facilitators in their area to make sure everything's staying on track.
Well, I want to say that for all those that have come to join us today and for all those that will be watching this once we have video and made that available, I just can't tell you how much we appreciate each and every one of you for your work, your compassion, your commitment. to SMART and to those that we serve. So I'm going to be available if people want to stay online a little bit longer. I don't know if the panel is able to, but quite literally, if there's other people that have other unanswered questions, we're happy to try to be of help to you.
Hi, this is Alex. How you doing, guys? Hi, everybody. Yeah,
Alex, that had to have been hard, staying quiet this whole time.
Like it's like dust coming out of my mouth. So it hurts my jaw. I haven't been able to speak. So I want to mention that the SMM meetings again. Melina mentioned it, but a lot of the questions that people are asking can be answered on the SMMs, and the SMMs are Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can find the logins for that in Volunteer HQ. You go to smartrecovery.org, click on Volunteer HQ at the top, register, sign into that, and you'll be able to get the login information for our SMMs. So, I mean, that answers the majority of the questions that that I've seen in chat. There's some other stuff, but I just want to make note of that. And I put it above my head right here. SMMs rock.
Alex, what does SMM stand for?
Thank you, Randy. I'm sorry. The SMMs are Smart Meeting Management. I think at some point we were talking about renaming that, which might be a good idea.
We actually added part of it. It's ongoing training and support as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry.
So I'm going to piggyback off of that because it's actually one of my several things. I only mentioned one, but if as a facilitator, as a volunteer, things that you can do today, right now, actually it's Monday, so today, to help expand your understanding of the smart recovery universe, maybe diversify your space a little bit, is to attend the SMM meetings. People from all walks of life come to them. All of the, some of them are smaller, some of them are bigger, but you meet facilitators, volunteers who are not from your area. So it's a great place to expand your world and your perception of who is part of smart recovery. So, yay.
There was a question about the definitions, and I'm not sure if there's a single place that we know of. So when Melina, we will circle back, Cindy, with Melina about those definitions, and perhaps we can make that available under Volunteer HQ, which is the portable. I think that would be a good source for something like that. So thank you.
Definitely. And there will be some information in SROL about the types of meetings as well.
Well, also for newcomers, when they're looking for a meeting, down at the bottom on the where the meeting details, it describes closed meeting, discussion meeting, or whatever. And when I first started, I had no idea what that meant. Do you know where I'm referring to? On the local meeting.
Oh, local meeting.
Yeah, well, yeah. When you go in and you key in your zip code or whatever to find a meeting, and then the meeting details come up. It took me a while to find the definitions, but thank you for addressing that.
Yeah, if we have any new facilitators on this call, please feel free to offer any questions that you might have right out of the gate, because we appreciate you coming to join us.